Good afternoon, everybody. I am Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online. And this afternoon, we have such a special treat. I've been trying to get this lady on with us for a while, and she's finally said yes. It is the one and only Jo King. Now, if you've not heard of her before, she is so fabulous. She is like one of the premier burlesque striptease teachers in Europe. I think she brought the art over here and ran the School of Burlesque. She ran some amazing shows, but one of the most fascinating things that struck me about her when we first met was, her love for women of all shapes, all sizes, no matter where you're from, and just trying to instill that body confidence in everybody that she met, and that whole message of self-love. So if you went into one of her classes, and the first one that I went to had a journalist in there, I don't know if you remember this, Jo, but someone who was a little bit skeptical, and I think was so moved by the way that Jo taught, and really does make everyone feel very safe and loved, and hopefully have that carried back into your world. Also an outstanding performer, so I'm blessed to have seen her when she was performing as well. So first of all, welcome, Jo. Thank you for joining me. It's such a delight, as always.
It's absolutely my pleasure. It wasn't that I didn't say yes, I said yes, we just could never find the time. So here we are, finally.
Here we are. So we'll start with the inspired question. And of course, you've been on our live stages in the past, but it's lovely to have you immortalized on our online platform. So
I like that.
Absolutely. Not that you aren't already, but if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
Given everything that we've all been through in recent times, I suppose it's not changed much, but I feel it more strongly, is that it's really important to spend time with people you love. That is one of the most important things, but it's very difficult to do that if you're not loving you. So my wisdom in a nutshell is love yourself, warts and all. It's so important. If you struggle with that, if you struggle with any part of that, whether it's your personality or your physicality, find a way to overcome that, because you are the most important person in your life.
Indeed. Very, very true. Now, you've worked with a lot of women, not all of whom embody that or feel that about themselves. So let's actually start with you. How did you get this incredible confident? I mean, you're magnificent on stage, very striking, obviously very confident. Where did that come from?
I'd love to tell you I know, but the truth is I don't really. It sounds ridiculous, but I do think that a lot of it has to do with upbringing. I had a very secure upbringing. I was loved. I knew I was loved. We didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of things, but I was loved. We had a pretty close family, not super close, but pretty close. And I always had the ability to make friends. I was always, even from quite a young age, I had a good sense of humor. And I do think humor and laughter is a very important bonding agent, more than we realize sometimes. Like when Shay, when you've been with someone and you've laughed a lot, that feels better than a time when you're with someone and you don't laugh a lot. It's a fact. There's something about laughter that, well, laughter and sex, that makes us feel really good about ourselves. So I have to say good sex though, not any sex. But I just think, so when I was young, I was always the joker, and I made a lot of friends. I think through my teenage years, I don't think I know through my teenage years, I was quite self-conscious, like most teenagers are. I remember thinking I was very ugly. I remember thinking all my friends were really pretty and that I was the ugly one. And I remember going to a party where a guy asked me to dance, and I think I was about 15, 16. And I said, why do you want to dance with me? All my friends are so pretty. What
Oh,
a stupid thing to say. But, you know, that's how I felt. And he said, because you've got more personality than all your friends put together. And I said, well, I don't think I have, but I still danced with him because it was a good
good
answer.
on you.
But at that young age, it suddenly made me realize that pretty wasn't everything. That
Mm.
pretty was, and I was quite pretty. I was
You
quite cute,
are
but
still.
I didn't think I was, right? For
Mm.
whatever reason, because that's what happens when you're a teenager. That's what
Mm.
society can do to you.
Yeah.
You know, even in teenage magazines, most of the girls who were in those magazines looked a certain way. Most of the people on television looked a certain way. So what happens is we tend to identify ourselves by what we see around us. And if you are not represented, then you feel maybe there is something not so great about you.
Mm.
This is still happening today. We're getting better, but it's still happening today. So maybe that's why I wasn't that confident. And then I don't really know what happened. I know I wanted to have my nose done for years because boys used to make fun of my nose. This one that I love,
Oh.
right? But they used to make fun of it. And then I got tits and no one noticed my nose anymore. Which is good in one way and not so good in another. But I don't know. I just think something happened. I would say when I got to be about, well, when I started stripping, when I started performing, I was 19 the first time I ever performed, and
Yeah.
I thought it was hysterically funny that anybody. I mean, I did. You know the story. I did it as a dare.
Yes,
Do you want
yes,
to
yes.
tell that story?
Yeah, go on, because not everyone does, so it's
Oh,
kind of fun.
so I was working as a waitress at a luncheon club, not in a cocktail bar, in a luncheon club. I was 19, and every hour, they used to open about midday and close about 4, 5, depending, and then they would reopen at night. But it was the kind of place where gentlemen went to do business deals. That was the kind of, like, you know, in this day and age, it became things like Spearmint Rhino and places like that.
Yeah.
Or as a friend of mine calls it, Peppermint Hippopotamus. But anyway. So at this club, people used to come in for lunch, but usually it was 2 men, 3 men, 4 men together, but they weren't coming to get drunk. They were coming to very often do business deals, and very often to see the lovely performances, because in those days there was burlesque striptease, and they would have one burlesque striptease artiste per hour.
Right, okay.
The shows were about 15 minutes long. They weren't short shows. They
Mm.
were real productions. And I used to, you know, I'll be there serving lunch, but I was amazed by these women. And I've always been a great voyeur. So I used to watch them and see what worked and what didn't work, and like, oh my gosh, but wasn't anything I ever thought I would do.
Mm.
And then one day, one of our clients, one of our customers, a man called Philip, I will remember him to the day I die, was a bit like, you know, Back to the Future.
Mm.
You know, the professor, the crazy professor.
Yes.
In it. He looked a lot like him.
Oh, God.
It wasn't him. It wasn't him, but he looked, you know, he reminded me of him. White hair and quite energetic in the way his personality was.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the dancers, one of the performers didn't turn up. And as I was going over and around, I was serving him, and he said, I can't even remember which girl didn't turn up, and like Kelly, we'll say Kelly, and he said, oh, Kelly's not coming because Tom, the DJ, had announced it. And he said, why don't you get up there, Joe? And I said in my lovely inimitable style, oh, you dirty old man, you just want to see my tits. And he said, well, yeah, but, and I said, well, put your money where your mouth is. And not thinking for 1 second, you know, that he would do anything about it. And I sauntered off back to the kitchens to get more food for whoever I was next to serve. And when I came out, Nino, the guy behind the main barman, had given Philip a pewter tankard that they had behind the bar. And Philip had put some money in it, and he had gone up to the other customers himself in there and said, oh, look, we could get Joe up there, and ha, ha, ha. And they all put money in.
Mm.
So when I came back out, he went, "There you are." And I went, because he called my bluff.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I was just wearing what we normally wore, like a black skirt and a white shirt. I didn't have particularly high heels on. I don't know. But I have always danced. I've always danced. I don't remember not dancing. I was the person who, if you went to the disco, I was the person that was on the dance floor first,
Fab.
off the dance floor last, probably had lemonade to keep me going, never needed drink. In fact, I earned the name unbeknownst to me. I found out many years later at one of the clubs that I used to go to, they used to call me the dancer because nobody else really danced. I danced. Anyway,
Awesome.
so I went up to Tom the DJ and I went, "What do I do?" And he said, "Oh, you just, dance and take your clothes off," like it was easy, which it really wasn't. But I think that's what I did. I went on stage and I picked 3 tracks because they used to work to 3 tracks.
Well,
First
that's
track,
quite lengthy, isn't it? Wow. Do you can make it?
huge if you think about it.
Mm.
Well, because in the classes we would do like a 3-minute track.
Yeah.
Which sometimes seemed like an eternity, didn't it?
Yeah, and you take 3 and you're like, okay.
And also a track could be anything up to 8 minutes long in those days. They weren't 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So you could be doing a 9-minute act, but you could also be doing a 24-minute act. It just depended what music.
Yeah.
Anyway, I chose 3 tracks. No, I don't remember what they were. I know that I got up on stage and I danced like a maniac in a discotheque, and I always maintained my clothes fell off. I don't remember removing them at all. And it was full nudity, strangely enough, in those days. Wow. And you used to dance for the first track. Second track, you took your outer layer off. And third track, you would take your underwear off. And usually your knickers would come off like the last 30 seconds, like blink and you miss it kind of thing. Anyway, the music ended on the third track and I still have my knickers on. Oh. And I remember everyone looking at me and like the other waitresses were out and the manager Bob was out and it was all supportive. Other strippers had come over, someone had told them they'd come over from another club or stayed late. And I remember going, "Oh," and standing and taking my knickers off so inelegantly to no music and standing there with them in my hand. I just said, "Thank you very much." It was probably the most inelegant striptease I've ever done. And then I went in the changing room and then I suddenly started shaking, which was adrenaline. I didn't know about that because I'd never experienced that before. But I hadn't been nervous, really. I just did it because I was like, how dare he, dare me. And then I counted the money. And what I didn't know is Philip had put a tenner in and everyone had matched it. And there was £80 in that pewter tankard. Wow. Now, in that day and age, I was working on tips only because it was just a luncheon job. I was kind of in between proper jobs. And I sometimes didn't earn 80 quid in a week. Wow. So there was, we're going back a long time. I was 19. And I just thought, there's something in this burlesque lot. Anyway, I spoke to other girls, other performers, and slowly I carried on waitressing, but I got other jobs, other performance jobs. Yeah. Although they didn't pay 80 quid, they paid usually between £6 and £10 a spot. Okay. So, and when I started, I had like I didn't strip there again because I was waitressing there, but I got a couple of jobs nearby, and then at one stage I had something like 8 jobs a night. I mean, I gave up waitressing and I got 8 jobs a night. Yeah, 6 nights a week. Fantastic! Wow. Yeah, and that's it. So I don't know where that. I think I was so amazed that people would pay to see me naked. That I do believe if you bluff it enough, it becomes true. And I think that was it. Other people thought I was fabulous, so therefore I must be. Indeed. Well, it reminds me of how you've seen that film Burlesque, right? And that moment that Christina Aguilera has been watching as the waitress, but she's so fascinated by the dancers and she's like, I can do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you. It's true. It's really
Yeah.
funny. When that film came out, they asked me to teach a group of journalists, and there was one of the journalists, I can't even remember her name now, and she came in with real attitude. You know, she really wanted to diss it, and she was really arsey, and she really wanted to be negative, and she's probably the only journalist that has ever written anything nasty about me
Oh,
afterwards.
no.
And I just thought it's so funny when you find journalists who have preconceived notions about it, or anyone that has preconceived notions, but a journalist should be honest and not, but she wanted to slam me and slam what it did, and I just thought, how sad. But it didn't hurt the box office of burlesque at all, and it didn't hurt me. I still got lots of people to come and learn from me, so no biggie.
As you should, as you should.
Thank you,
Um,
baby.
So let's segue to some of the women that come your way, because
Okay.
I'm sure, you know, maybe a lot of people hearing this would be absolutely horrified if they were thrown into into that situation. And you know, a lot of people, they're not people that are, well, some people are people that want to be professional burlesque dancers, but a lot of them are actually just people, you know, that want to increase their body confidence, and maybe they're really shy, and maybe they don't look perfect or anything like that. What is, you know, the advice that you give them in order to help them to have that confidence to love themselves?
Okay, well, can we just, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit, because for a lot of people, all they've heard so far is that I got up and took my clothes off once and then became a burlesque artist. But what people don't know is that I started teaching quite early on. When I was about 20, I was at a club and they had new girls and they said, Jo, would you help them? And then I started teaching a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I was teaching in the clubs, in the pubs, wherever I was. I taught people, and people come to me privately. And then in 2000, I did something for Toppie Owens, and Toppie and I were talking, and she said, why don't you open a school? And I said, I've always wanted to, but who would come, Toppie? And she said, I'd come. Anyway, I initially opened something called the London School of Striptease, which scared a lot of people away because of the name striptease, although I did teach a huge amount of women, I mean hundreds and hundreds of women, about the art of striptease, whether they wanted to be professional or personal life or whatever. And then I realized, because burlesque had been my first introduction really into performance, I thought, and burlesque was having a revival in England. So I decided to open the London Academy of Burlesque as well, because also the name burlesque doesn't scare people the way the word striptease does. Crazy, really, when you think about it, because it's all semantics, but nonetheless. So I started teaching the London Academy of Burlesque. So meanwhile, I trained lots of teachers. I had teachers who taught pole dancing. I was the first person in the whole of Europe to teach pole dancing, you know, to have a pole dancing school, I mean. So we taught pole dancing, which I don't do anymore, but we did it for a long time.
Pretty hard, actually. I mean,
what, darling?
it's really hard, to be
It's
honest.
you
It's
need
like,
to have
what
very
on
good
arms?
upper body strength, strong
You need to-
thighs. We used to say to women, tell your husbands or boyfriends, because otherwise they're going to think you're having rampant sex with someone or you've been beaten up, because the bruises people would acquire from the pole is, you know, because you're trying to wrap a supple body around a strong metal object. But anyway, so I did that for a long time. We taught hundreds of people. I had amazing teachers. And then I also taught what I call exotic dancing, which was no nudity involved. I taught like kind of sexy dancing. I taught striptease, which is my favorite thing in the world to teach, I have to say. And I taught burlesque. And so women would come. I've taught doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, lawyers, lots. I get more people from the legal and medical profession than from anywhere else. So just so that people know. But also, as you said, I've only ever said you have to be over 18. I've never given it an upper limit. The oldest person I've taught to my knowledge was 89.
Wow. Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah. I taught a woman of 82 who was in a troupe, an American troupe, and she was over here, and she had me teach her how to, she wanted to know how to walk in a sexy way. And by the end of it, she said, oh, can you teach me a striptease? And she was 82 and she learned a striptease. She was hysterically funny and fabulous. I've taught women who were size 6 and women who were size 26. I've taught women, you know, I've taught 3 of my students were all in wheelchairs.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about the disabilities as well. You've done some beautiful work on that
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I've taught, I taught for Extant, who are the only company where all their actors are blind and partially sighted. I taught them for one of their shows called Sheer. So I've done that. And all of those things were a huge challenge for me, but I met them and I did them and I loved it, because it's that thing. And the thing is what you asked me about, what I tell women. I do have things I say to everyone, but very often, if it's a one-to-one, there will be things I say to people on a personal level that I wouldn't say to other people possibly. Or sometimes in a classroom, I'll notice that one person is struggling, and then I will find a way of giving them an exercise where I have to go up to each of them and say something, but that means I'm able to speak to that person without them realizing I'm singling them out.
Yeah.
Because that's really important. You know, I taught Agnes Dean, you know, the supermodel.
No, I personally don't, but I'm sure lots of people out there do.
Yeah. Okay, well, Agnes Dean, was a very famous kind of androgynous supermodel, and she decided quite a few years back now to give up modeling and go into acting.
Okay.
And for her first film role, she had to do a sexy dance and seduce her boyfriend or something, and they contacted me, and I taught Agnes, who was lovely.
Better, clearly.
But what was so bizarre, Shay,
Yeah.
this is a supermodel, and she wasn't that confident about her body.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Listen to this. Supermodel, not that confident. And she said, you know, as a model, you do get treated a little bit like a bit of meat. You know, there is that, it's an old fashioned idea, but you do. And she said no one had ever before me given her permission to give herself permission to be however she wanted to be, which was incredible. I also remember I took this robe that I have. It's like a black satin robe. And I said, look, try this on. This is a similar thing, maybe. And I had another robe that I put on, and because I always, whenever I teach, you know, I do it with you. I don't say you do this.
Yeah.
I do it with you. And I think when people see me and they see that I'm, you know, I'm now like nearly 62, and I'm, you know, 5 foot and a flea called Bert, and I'm overweight, my BMI is, you know, but, you know, I'm still one sexy MF.
You are.
And I don't care. I like my cuddly bits. So yum, 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 yum. And with Agnes, she put the robe on. I said, try this on. And you've got to remember, she's like 6 foot supermodel, very slim. And she went, oh, Jo, you could go out in this. And I said, no, darling, you could go out in she looked amazing. But yeah, so I've taught all kinds of people, and it's about not listening to all the things that have got you to that negative stage. You know, with some people, I've had students, because you're all my students, I've had students come to me I had a woman who was in the army, and her mother and sister, her whole life had made her feel like she wasn't feminine, wasn't important, wasn't. And with some people, it's, you know, that they had a boyfriend who made them feel bad, or a husband that left them for a younger model, or a whatever, older model, or a different gender, or you know, there's a lot of things in life that can make you feel less than you are.
Yeah.
But you are never less than you are. You all everyone has the ability to be everything they can be, but it is about self-worth, and it's not something I can categorically absolutely give to everyone, but I do know for a fact from all the feedback that there's thousands of women that I've taught over the years that I have helped. So I've got to be doing something right, kid.
You do. Well, do you have a favorite success story that you'd like to share with us? I know you have lots, but
yeah, I suppose one of them actually, it's kind of sad, but it's beautiful, I think.
Okay.
There was a woman whose husband contacted me, and I was always a little bit wary when men contacted me about women doing something. And I always said, well, that's absolutely fine. They can learn how to strip or whatever it is they wanted to learn, a burlesque act, whatever. But I'd like to speak to them.
Yes.
So I always made them the woman contact me. Anyway, it turned out this woman was not very well and she couldn't really walk very much. And the husband said, would it be all right if I came into the room? And I didn't usually let men come in with their women because obviously I'm stripping too. So, you know, I'm for them that much. But because I understood she wasn't well anyway, he came, he was lovely. They were a lovely couple. And on the day that she was so excited about it, she wanted to learn this striptease. And on the day they came, she couldn't walk at all. I mean, she could walk usually, but she couldn't walk at all.
Wow.
That day, her legs were really. And so I thought on my feet and I said, all right, we're going to do a striptease on a chair. Oh. Now, although lots of people teach chair work, doing a whole striptease on a chair is not easy. Because, you know, you need to move in a certain way. And we did this striptease. Anyway, we did a wonderful thing. He was so proud and she was so happy and they left. They sent me the most amazing letter afterwards saying how fantastic it was and everything. And about, oh gosh, 2 years later, something like that, out of the blue, I received a letter from the husband saying that she had passed away, she'd died. And he said, but I just wanted to write to you, Jo, because after that time with you, she was like the cat who got the cream. He said, you have no idea how much you changed the rest of her life. So for me, that's an amazing success story.
That's just so beautiful, you know, and a testament that you don't have to be, well, you know, you don't have to look a certain way, you don't have to have a certain physical ability or anything like that. You know, you can still, you do this and you can still have love for yourself, which I know is infused in all your work that you do. So let's go back to your personal story, because it's so fascinating. It is though. How did you, you know, you move with, you know, such grace and style and all that kind of thing, and you started, as you told us, completely by accident.
Completely.
Yeah, I mean, how did you learn all the stuff yourself that you then taught?
It's really funny because when I started teaching, I didn't realize how much I knew, because you don't. A lot of things come to me very naturally. I've always danced, like I said, I've always loved dancing. And I was quite a sexy young woman anyway. I was once I got a body, I was quite aware of it. And I became very aware of the power that it has and the power of femininity, the power of being a woman. You know, some people don't like the word femininity, but there is power to being female. There is. That I know, not always in everything, but nonetheless there is. And you know, the way we walk, the way we hold ourselves, all those things have an effect on other people. You know, if you walk, I learned very young from a woman who lived across the road from me. She said, if you walk into a room like you're nothing, no one will notice you. But if you walk into a room like you're something, even if people are bitching about you, they'll have noticed you. And that's that thing. It's the head held high. It's the, you know, I'm only 5 foot, but most people don't realize how little I am because I walk like I'm 6'4", you know.
You have.
So, sorry, darling.
Yeah, I said you have a presence.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you. So yeah, I just found that as I moved on doing this, I learned more about myself teaching, and I was able, for example, the first person I ever taught on a one-to-one basis, I was teaching her how to walk. I don't mean just walk in the street, although you can use my walk in the street and it makes people crash their cars, but the walk for striptease, yeah, and which can also be applied to a burlesque act, but it's to do with allowing your hips to move, for your body to sashay, for your bottom and your buttocks to move in a way they're meant to, not in the way we're taught to contain it, no containing. And I walked up and down a couple of times and she went, oh, how did you do that? And I said, what? And I did it again. She said, that. And I said, well, no, that. And I said, what? Turn. She went, yes. How did you turn? And I wasn't teaching people. I hadn't thought to teach how to turn. You know, you walk, you turn around. It never crossed my mind. But then I realized that I turn a certain way when I do my dancing. So then I realized the more I taught, the more I broke it down into bite-sized pieces. I mean, I started teaching one-to-ones for 3 hours, but it was too long. People couldn't take it all in. So I cut it down to 2 hours. And even then, I teach a lot in 2 hours, you know. So I and also it depends. I teach a set amount of things, like a set modules, if you like. But if you come and you're brilliant at one, we'll move on to the next one quicker. And then sometimes I might see a spark in someone and think, oh, I can teach her this. Whereas I might not teach you it, but I might teach her it. So I always tailor everything I do to suit the people I'm teaching.
Amazing. I'd like to talk a little bit about our younger audience. I know you have a beautiful teenager at home as well.
I do.
But yeah, what would you say to, you know, someone who's in their sort of young teenage years, or, you know, just growing up around, you know, what you grew up with as well, lots of models or people in the media that aren't necessarily, you know, achievable as a look for everybody? What would you say to that generation?
Well, it's really interesting. My daughter's now 16, and you know, she's been through the highs and lows of being a teenager. I'm sure it ain't all over yet, but she's doing her best. And she wrote a wonderful piece about social media and its negative effect, about the adverts and the negative effect on young people, and how they shouldn't advertise makeup with just a certain kind of person or perfume. You know, we shouldn't all try and be like those people. And she's 16. Well, she wrote it over a year ago or something. I'll send it to you, Shay, actually. I'll get her to find it and send it to you, because you might want to include it in something or read it out or do something. You know, it's incredible. But what, darling? Sorry.
I was going to say we can link it to this video as well, so other people can have a look.
That would be lovely. If I can, if I get her to find it, that would be great. I'm sure she'll have it somewhere. I would say to young people, I don't actually think lack of confidence is necessarily an age thing. You know, because I've taught women in their 60s or 70s or 40s or 30s who have no confidence. So, but I do think teenagers, I think with social media, I think social media is very cruel sometimes. And I think luckily as you get older, you learn how to switch it off or take no notice of it or not read the crap, you know, or be jealous that someone seems to be having a wonderful life and you're not, because actually what we need to focus on is us. So I would say to all teenagers, social media is wonderful, but limit the amount of time you're on it. Choose what you go on very carefully. Don't ever feel that you need to do what somebody else is doing. I know it's great to have lots of likes, but likes don't mean very much, really. It's your friends who come round and are there for you when, you know, you might have COVID or you sprain your ankle or your boyfriend leaves you. They're the ones that matters, because all those likes, they're not going to really care. So that's what I would say to young people. I would say have faith in yourself. If you've got a good relationship with your mum or your sister or your brother or your dad, talk to them. If you've got problems, always talk about your problems. Don't keep it to yourself, and don't necessarily just share it with someone of your own age, because very often they won't necessarily have the experience or the tools to help you. So
it's beautiful. Thank you.
And go out there and be wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's good advice for everybody, really, men, women, and our young people, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I think 2020 has been a really tough year, hasn't it, for everyone? Yeah, and I think a lot of people maybe... What, darling?
It's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, interesting. There's a word. It's been interesting. I've been quite lucky in a way. I was very poorly in March. I think that's what it was. We self-isolated and everything for 14 days. I was really not well. but the great thing about the first lockdown, I found it very hard. I'm not very good at being stuck at home all the time. So that first lockdown I found tough. But I was stuck at home with a 16-year-old who I love very much. And I realized that there were things we spoke about and things we were able to do together and the time we had together that most parents will never have with their children in a normal world. So my last words of advice for now, not forever, would be, you know, find beauty in the little things. Do be grateful for what you have, because, you know, if we're breathing in and out, we're way ahead. We're way ahead of the game. Spend time with people you love. Don't waste time with energy vampires. And find a hobby. I found a hobby. I have to show you my hobby before you go.
Go on.
I've upcycled a table.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Can we all see that?
It was a boring table. No, do you know what? You can't see it properly now, but I will send you photos of my upcycled. It's a drag queen table. It is my delight. I'm so proud of myself. So yeah, so find a hobby, find something that inspires you, because it's all about being inspired. I love you, Shay.
Love you too. Thank you so much. And if our beautiful audience would like to connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, people can email me. I'm having some problems with my email, so can I give you two?
Of course.
One would be, yeah, is that all right? One would be London Academy of Burlesque.com. So it's no, London Academy of Burlesque @gmail.com. Sorry, that's one. Or if you can't get that, try my name, Jo King, JOKING, with E for Edward, S for sexy, I for inspired, S for sexy, @gmail.com. I'm so rubbish at this. So it's either London Academy of Burlesque @gmail.com or jokingesis@gmail.com. So email me, just email me, and yeah, let's see what I can do. I can do one-to-ones online. I'm not a huge fan of working online. I prefer in the flesh, just because I think you learn more that way, but I can teach online. I can choreograph. If you've got an act, a burlesque act or a striptease act, or you want to do it for your loved one, I don't care if it's your husband, your lover, your girlfriend, or all three, whatever you want to do. If you need any help with that, I'm happy to do that online. But yeah, send me an email and we can discuss it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to have you on.
I love you. Take care, gorgeous girl.
Thank you. You too.